Hey everyone, welcome to Buzzing About Romance Happy Hour Edition. I am Becky, and joining me for this happy hour is Leah. Hi, Leah.
Hi, Becky.
And we are super excited. Leah jumped the line, was like, I am in on that happy hour. We
Well, let me tell you, like, because I hate to say this, but I'm not a huge fan of the happy hour because with my schedule, it's really tough and like getting like here. But when Becky was like, well, Erin Nicholas is coming, I'm like, this one's fine. You don't have a
Oh,
choice because the last time
oh,
there was an author I really wanted to talk to, she didn't ask me, and I got real mad.
She did get really mad. I thought she was
So,
going to stab me. Anyway, we're super excited. Author Erin Nicholas is here to join us, and we are
oh.
celebrating the Badges of the Bayou series, which is now available
mhm.
audiobook, ebook, and paperback.
Yes. The third book in audio is on its way.
It's on
Like
its way.
3 days away.
Coming soon
Coming
to
soon.
audiobook places near you.
That's right.
We are super excited about this, though. And book one in
Yes.
the ebooks which is, I read it.
Gotta be by you.
Gotta be by you. You would have thought I
It's
wrote that
free
down.
right
It's
now.
currently free, you guys.
Yes.
You would
It's
think.
always in KU and now it's free on Amazon till Sunday. Well, till Monday, like through Sunday.
Through Sunday. So everybody should go ahead and grab that because you are not going to want to miss this series. It is delightful and quirky, and you love a pun.
Okay, so
Who
I
noticed
do have a
that?
question because some of your older books, they don't
Mhm.
have punny titles, but like
No.
all of your new ones do. Like, did that
Yeah.
happen by accident, or did you say like decide I want to have puns for titles?
I think I just let myself go finally. A lot of my older books
Just let
were
it go.
were with the publisher. And then when I
Hmm.
got to do my own thing, I was just like, I don't know, this is funny. I'm a fan of Penny Reed, if that explains anything too. I really enjoy all of her titles and her
It
books.
does.
So, yeah. So I was like, oh yeah, this is fun. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that
this is like
makes
a
a lot
good
of
one.
sense because Penny likes she
She
likes a
likes a
pun
pun.
too.
She does. Yes, she does.
Um,
I mean, who doesn't like a pun? Do we
They're
trust
they're
people that
more,
don't like puns?
I'm sure people think it's ridiculous, but it's memorable. In my mind, it's memorable, right? It's like, oh, she's the one that writes weird books about the bayou. You can immediately
Mm,
just, that does not sound like something for me, or I'm intrigued. So
yeah,
I think it works that way.
well,
I
so
just love them. I think they're fun.
Leah,
Thank you.
Leah's gonna fangirl so much tonight. I just love
That
this.
makes
I
my whole night.
really
My husband,
am.
he's not even gonna be able to talk to me later. Just be like, I'm sorry.
That is
I what you did.
Honestly, that is the best part of having this podcast and getting to do this stuff is basically it is permission to be a fangirl. Like people want to come and then we're like, we promise not to be awkward, we promise not to be awkward. It's a lie. We're always awkward.
It's so
Oh,
fun to
we're.
watch you guys talk to these authors, though. Like, I'm a fangirl of a lot of these authors, and watching them talk to
Mhm.
them is so fun because it's like, oh, they're real people. That's so nice. So nice to know.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, we're really awkward. Did you? Because I know you listened to the podcast. Did you
I
listen
did.
to the Aurora Rose Reynolds for
oh,
Never
the for never.
quick shot?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
And I
The
couldn't
awkward. I
stop
can't even
laughing, and
listen.
Leah mommed me.
I had to mom her so hard. No, we did the intro like 4 times because Becky could not remember how to do it. And so finally, like we
I'm
were
so
both just laughing so hard and she couldn't get words out. And so I just took over, but I was like
Yep, I
momming
remember that
her
one.
as I did it.
yeah.
I
Oh, it was
remember that one.
bad. And then we put like the snippet of the video out because people really just
Well, it's
they
now
need to see it.
the extended cut is now available, and I froze. I know my screen froze a little bit. The
Yeah.
extended cut is now available right here on YouTube. At least I'm not picking my nose in my frozen screen there.
It
Um,
makes it makes you guys real. I like it. I like that you're a little awkward. It makes it a lot less intimidating.
yeah. So rules of the night, you can ask all the questions in the chat. We'll do our best to answer them. In the description of the video are the links to all the places to connect with Erin. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. We will kick things off with our traditional way. Erin, what are you drinking tonight?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked because I did this especially for you. So it's called a Pim's Cup. It
Oh,
is actually
yum.
one of my
Ooh.
favorite drinks, but it's a very New Orleans drink.
Mhm.
Was invented there. And one of my very favorite bars makes them, supposedly invented them there, but they make the best ones. So it's basically Pimm's, which is like it's a special liqueur. It's hard to get in Iowa, I found out. And then you mix it with lemonade and Sprite. That's how I make it. That's not actually the like really original way. And then you're supposed to muddle fruit and herbs in it. And obviously I didn't do that, but yeah, very refreshing.
I can't buy Pim.
Seems...
I can't buy Pims in Ohio.
Okay, so that makes me feel better.
Do they have Pims in PA? I don't think I've ever seen it.
Go try to find it. It was very hard
to.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I will say, like, my town is very small, and honestly, like, my liquor in PA, you have like there's separate liquor stores, like for it's PA.
Yeah.
But my liquor store is very small, so I'll have to go to one of the bigger ones.
You have to see if they can order it, because I went to a small one too, and they didn't even know what I was talking about. So,
oh well, that's always fun. Yeah, the muddling seems like it's pretty involved. Like,
you dump it all in, you
squeeze
it a little, and you let it set for a while. Is what you're supposed to do. So it kind of takes on all those flavors. So yeah.
Leah likes to just pour the gin straight to her mug and sip.
I pour I do the tonic too, the gin and then the tonic.
Sorry, the
and then
splash.
I sip.
The splash.
Hey, but look, I have a class tonight.
Impressive. Impressive.
Well, no, I use a coffee mug for everything because it has a handle.
That makes sense.
But I was drinking water out of this, and then I came downstairs and I found my whiskey in my drawer, and so I just poured some whiskey and then my sparkling water. And so,
what does it say about our office hours that you just have whiskey in your drawer?
But it's my basement office. Like, it's not my office that I go to during the day.
No, but we do work at your desk. Like, we work at your desk.
This is true, but it's okay.
All okay.
Anyway. So Leo, you're having whiskey and water. I honestly am just drinking a Coke Zero cherry flavor. Because I forgot to get a drink.
Kind of boring tonight.
I am kind of boring.
Where's your bartender?
You know, he's a little grouchy. It's hump day.
And
it was hump day. Hump day. I remembered to use my hump day mug, but I did forget to ask him what day it was. My husband's name is Mike. And I often like to ask him on Wednesday what day it is. Does he think
that's hilarious? I bet he does.
My poor children, like, I'm like, guess what day it is? And I hold my mug and I yell really loud in the house while they're sleeping. They're young adults. Like, they're, graduating high school and going to college next year. And so they just think I'm annoying as heck. So
they're ready to go to college. Is that what you're saying?
They have to go to college down the street.
But they're still going to live at home, though.
They're still going to live at home. My husband works for the local university, so they get free tuition. They don't have a choice.
Totally.
I'm like,
totally makes sense. I have my youngest is graduating college in 3 weeks, so I get you.
Yeah,
I would love to have sent him somewhere for free. Yes,
yeah,
that would have been great.
Luckily, there's programs both of them want at this university, and I'm like, this is where it is, people.
Perfect.
So, Erin, let's get to know you a little bit because this is really weird. I actually read is it Boys of New Orleans?
There is the Boys of the Big Easy.
Boys of the Big Easy.
New Orleans. Yeah.
So here's a funny story. I read that whole series. It used to be in my library. I read it like as they were coming out, 2018 and such. Never put that name to this series until I went to my Goodreads and I was like, I'm going to review the Bayou because I read the Badges of the Bayou and I'm like, I've read this author before.
That might be that same girl.
But we call it Bookanesia.
Well,
we do.
I'm going to give you an out because the first book in that series is with the publisher. And then I finished the series on my own. So there's a little disconnect sometimes, as far as like follow through, read through, like finding the next book sometimes. So that's probably what happened, Becky. It's not your fault.
Sure. It's okay. I mean, listen, there are times I can't get names right. So even my own, it's true. Fine.
I get it.
So here's a funny story about names. So my husband is also a Mike. And Becky was telling her Mike a story. This has been a while, but she's telling her Mike a story. She's like, yeah, Leah's husband, like, that guy, like Leah's husband. And he's like, Mike. She's like, Oh yeah.
Such a hard
It's
name.
like, how could you not remember? Like, we both have mics.
That's pretty good.
Anyway. Okay, so we want to get to know you, and Susie's already asking all the questions. She is headed to the Iowa Book Bash this weekend. Erin is not Susie,
Yes.
but we're hoping to get her there next year.
Yeah, I
But
didn't even know about it.
she might just show up though. You never
Right.
know. You might have an Erin sighting in the wild.
In the wild. I think that'd be funny.
Susie's asking, so how long have you been writing?
Oh my God. So I actually my very first book ever published was in 2009, but November of 2009. So I feel like that almost doesn't count. So I usually say 2010.
Okay.
It
So,
totally
yeah.
counts.
First published 2010. So like forever. I feel like sometimes forever. I was just at an author retreat last week, and I was with a group. Most of us have been published about that long. There were two girls who weren't.
Were you the group in Vegas with all the wine glasses and coffee mugs and cups? Because we might have been peeking on. I was like trying to get glimpses because I saw.
I wanted to figure out who was there.
I won't name the person that was on TikTok sharing everybody's pictures of their cups and stuff. But
that was us. She tried to get us on camera, and we were all like, really? Like, we're at a retreat. Like, we're in our pajamas. Like, no, sorry. But
I just want to go to one. They look like so much fun.
They're fun.
Like, can I just sit there and like fangirl and be like, hi guys?
It was so fun. Anyway. Well, I was fangirling a little too, because, you know, I mean, a couple of them are like my besties, and I still fangirl over them. And then a couple others are like new friends. So, but yeah, we were talking about how we were literally like published before there was a Kindle. You know, and like these girls, their eyes widen a little bit. Like, I know. Yeah. So yeah, before Kindle, before KU, before all of that.
I was trying to explain to a newer to romance reader about how it used to be back in the day. And I say this because I've been reading romance. I look very youthful, but I am not. I've been reading romance since 1990 when I was a teen. And I was trying to explain to this person that, you know, because they were upset. There was a book that was currently released that got an upgrade in size. It was still paperback, trade paperback, but it was upgraded in size. And of course, the publisher upped the price. And I was like, and it almost was cheaper to buy the hardback than it was to buy the paperback. But they had paperbacks for the other two books in this author's offerings.
Yeah.
And I said, you don't know the pain that the rest of us know.
Right.
Because it used to be that we would get basically 2 times a year, we would get the big romance releases. You'd get the May and either October, November. They'd come
out. It was all Christmas then.
Yeah. And you'd get them in hardback. And they would be hardback for a year sometimes, 18 months, before we would see them mass market paperback.
And that was the worst ones. If the hardback sold really good, the paperback, it took longer. Like you had to wait longer. It's like you almost wish that it tanked.
I know it.
Because then you could get the paperback.
But I think this is why like our moms read all of those categories and had those boxes coming to the house because you were always guaranteed at least, 4 to 6
for a month every time.
For sure. And I think that's why the used bookstores were even bigger back then too, right? Because everybody was just like, well, I have this one, and, and go and sell and get something else. And I totally agree.
The paper sack. Yeah. My mother would get her hair cut once a month, and we'd get the paper sack from the hairstylist full of all the paperbacks. And then when we were done with it, it would go on the porch for the next person to pick up.
Just rotate them through the neighborhood.
Oh, see. The good old days, back in the pioneer times, before we had lights and stuff.
But you don't know everyone's always like, oh, I gotta wait. Release isn't for 30, for like 2 weeks.
Right.
I'm like, people.
The ones that kill me are the whole, I can't, they don't want to go to Book Funnel, right? Because it's 2 or 3 clicks versus 1 click. And I'm like, you don't even know. Let me explain to you, side loading PDFs to your computer, because there was no such thing as reading on your phone or such a thing as a Kindle.
Well, because phones were not that smart.
Absolutely not.
I had a conversation probably last month or the month before, because my kids are 12 and 9. So, but we were talking about technology when we were growing up, and they're like, oh yeah, when you were younger, in your tablets. And my husband and I are like, tablets did not exist when we were your age. Like
Yeah.
we were still connected to like by the wire to our like gaming systems. Like you could only
Our
sit
home
so
computer had a
far.
tape deck. We had a Texas Instrument tape deck, and I learned DOS.
Oh,
Okay,
we had DOS
'cause I am
with
that old.
the big floppy.
The floppy disks. Oh my God. And then when they got to the little hard ones, that was so
Oh,
much
it was like,
better.
I know, it was amazing when those like small floppies came into play.
Well,
Oh,
and
We
Leah
have not
often,
talked about books at all
I
tonight.
know, we'll get
just
there.
saying
Leah
that.
laughs at me though because
adjacent.
I picked the
Adjacent.
Nook back
Okay.
in 2010. I picked the Nook because didn't it make more sense to buy something that was associated to an actual bookstore
Right.
versus a guy in his garage?
Well, we were talking about that. Was the Nook first or was Kobo first? Because Kindle absolutely was not. I mean,
So-
those two were out before,
Actually,
at least a couple years.
Sony Libre was the very
Okay.
first e-reader,
Okay.
and that
Yep.
came out in 2008. And Nook was a
Okay.
spin-off of that. And then the Japanese Kobo came within like 3 months
Mhm.
Okay.
of
Okay.
Nook. Like I think there was an announcement and the Kobos might have actually hit retail first, but the announcement came from Barnes and Noble before them.
Okay.
Um,
And yeah, and Nooks were of course, like, because you're going, well, Barnes and Noble equals books equals Nook. I mean,
Right.
of course. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we made that decision, but to borrow from my library, you had to download it to Overdrive to
Yeah.
the Adobe program that then you had to plug in with.
Well, because you
I'm
had to connect everything. You couldn't just
Yeah.
like upload
There was
it.
no
like
Wi-Fi
everything,
like
there,
that.
You had to, well,
It
and
was
it's
rough,
like,
is what we're saying. It was rough.
It was rough. Okay, so let's talk books. Tell us, Erin,
Okay.
you've been publishing since 2009. Why
Yes.
romance?
I never ever considered anything else except maybe when I was about 8, I was going to write what probably would have turned into Harry Potter, honestly. Both of my parents were huge readers,
mhm.
and literally my dad read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings out loud to me
Mhm.
during night as I went to bed when I was like 5, 6, 7, 8. So I was raised on fantasy. And then he was a big sci-fi reader. Mom was a big romance reader. I was reading a lot of fantasy, kind of young adult, of course, Sweet Valley High, and then Nancy Drew. I read all of that stuff. And then I don't know, I don't remember exactly why, but when I was 14, my mother gave me Laverell Spencer's Separate Beds. And that was it. I was in.
You were sunk.
Never looked back. So I always wanted to be a writer. I mean, my parents still, it's really sweet, kept the notebooks that I wrote stories in when I was like first grade, second grade, So I always knew I wanted to be a writer. But yeah, when it came down to like actually submitting something to a publisher, never even thought of anything else. So
I love that.
yeah,
I do too.
People are always
Well, I
like,
love the fact that she like handed you the book too. Like when I was growing
I
up, like
know.
I had to sneak them. totally was not sneaking them. Like
Yeah.
she knew I was doing it, but I felt really like sneaky
Right.
about it.
She
But
didn't
like
say it was okay.
she didn't
though.
say, "Hey, read this."
Right.
It was like she
And
just knew they were
she doesn't
missing.
remember either. Like, I'm not really sure why. I think it was just because both my sister and I were avid readers, and we were just like running out of stuff. And she has this closet full of books, and it was like, well, here. And looking back, Laverell Spencer was fairly tame, right? But that book was a one-night stand. She gets pregnant, this whole thing. And I'm thinking, I was 14, Mom. Like, but obviously very grateful to her for that. Changed my trajectory, basically put me on my path. So
isn't it funny that you can remember that first book? I remember my first romance. It was Jude Devereaux's The Conquest, which plays into gender and attraction because and it's medieval. And so like those were big things. And that was a book from like the mid 80s.
Right.
And then there was never, I was never turning back after that. Like,
I know,
but I was lucky. My mom read them.
I've read a little bit of mystery along the way. I read some, like I read Harry Potter. My daughter was into that. My dad and daughter read that together, which was kind of sweet. So I read some stuff along the way, but I almost never read anything but romance.
I fell down the like YA rabbit hole at the dawning of the dystopians, like the Hunger Games and Divergent, and all of those kinds of things. But at the end of the day, my heart was always like, I think
it always went back to romance.
The exit out of romance, like the least romance type thing I probably read were like the Janet Ivanovich, Stephanie Plum books.
Yeah. Right.
Um,
Right.
but I mean, they sort of had romance, but then also sometimes some of the Nora Roberts stuff was just like on
Yeah.
the edge. But out of
Do you know I'm probably the only romance writer in the entire world who's never read Nora Roberts?
that doesn't, no, I don't think you're the only one.
I love her though. As a person, I love her,
Mhm.
emulate her, have met her, admire her, but I've just never read her.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear I'm not the only one.
No, I don't think you're the only one. Um,
I
Oh.
doubt it. Do you have a favorite trope to read or to write?
I do. The funny thing, I was thinking about this. To write, it's funny. I write a lot of Grumpy Sunshine,
Mhm.
so I really love that. It's just awesome. When I used to, my older books, when I look back, I used to kind of consider them more opposites attract. But when I look at them, they're Grumpy Sunshine. We didn't really call them that, I
Yeah.
think. That wasn't really the term we used. But I'll tell you what I write a lot of. And again, this wasn't the term. I love readers. I love readers and I love TikTok, book talk, because they come up with all of this terminology. I've written so many golden retrievers. I am like, oh, clearly I have a type.
You really do.
Oh my God.
We
I love
also-
that term. I'm glad that we have a term for it.
we also sometimes call them frat boy puppies.
I
Mhm.
kind of like that.
Because they have that like jock mentality,
Yes.
but there's
Yes.
this like
You need to mom them a little
we have
bit.
to mom
Yeah.
like, and the heroine will kind of mom the hero a little bit, so we like to call them frat boy
Yeah.
puppies.
And I love that. And I love when the heroine is quite annoyed by that, right?
Yeah.
But then she can't not do it. And he's fine. He's fine with
Mhm.
it. Like he's not annoyed by it. Yeah, I love that. To read though, it's super funny. There's very few tropes I won't read. There are certain like things within any book that I don't
Mhm.
like, but I'll read almost any trope. But I was thinking about it. I write so much small town, blue collar guys, like I said,
Mhm.
golden retrievers. But you know what I love to read? Rich assholes.
Love an
Leah
asshole.
loves an asshole.
I love a good asshole.
I
And
do
I think
too.
it's because I write so many of, I spend so much time in this other world when I go to read. That's I kind of, and I'll tell you, the rich stuff, royals, I love royals. And I love, because I just love the fantasy of it. Yes, it's over the top. Yes, I know it's unrealistic. That's why I want it.
Yeah.
Because of course it is. That's romance. That's every freaking Disney movie and every.
But I
Mhm.
think so. I have this theory, and
Yes.
it's bonkers, and everybody's gonna like Leah's gonna roll her eyes at me. I
Oh, here
do
we go.
believe that sports romance, the professional sports guy, is the acceptable billionaire
Agreed.
for today's current readers.
Agreed. Because people who say they don't, oh, it's not realistic. And why? And I do agree a little bit with why do they all have to be billionaires? Can we get back to millionaires?
Right.
That's a little bit more like, why can't they just have some money?
Just a CEO. I mean,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. But I agree with that. And the sports thing is funny because they have every single advantage, right? That
Yeah.
all the other rich boys do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree with that.
But they're acceptable.
And so few of them actually have a lot to do with the sport. So I love, because I'm
really
not a
do.
girl, we're reading sports romance. Are we?
Well,
Are we?
There's sports elements to it.
I am the most unsports person. Like I'm like, yay, sports ball.
You are a whore for a sports romance.
But I am a whore for a sports romance.
It's so funny. My daughter does not. So she's an avid reader and she's my favorite plotting partner and she doesn't read romance. So it's really funny. Actually, I think that's what makes her a good plotting partner because she's very objective. She doesn't really know the rules, right? So she helps me with the plots. And she's a nerd. And she would be fine with me saying that. She's a nerd. She doesn't care about sports. She never played them herself. In the past 2 years, she's discovered hockey. And she's 4'11". She's this little tiny thing. She loves hockey. My husband's like, damn it, she's going to bring some big hulking hockey guy home. And he's like, that's the one sport I don't know anything about. Well, and he's like, and I don't know anything about hockey. My husband's a huge football, baseball, anything else he knows. He doesn't know anything.
He's going to have to learn.
And I think it's hilarious that she's so into this. Like, she's like, I can't talk tonight. The playoffs are on. I was like, the playoffs? She's like, Mother, how many times do I have to tell you?
You're like, what,
it's hilarious.
playoffs?
So I'm trying to find a really great hockey romance that she would like, but they're all so
Sawyer.
Sawyer Bennett.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Baden is currently free for
Yes,
Independent
Baden is
Bookstore
free.
Day.
It's
Okay.
very, very good.
I'm going to have her try it because I was going to have her read Icebreaker because I thought maybe the college thing. And then I was like, no, she won't like the
She
young.
seems like she would like a Sawyer Bennett book.
Okay.
Yeah, Baden is
I'll have her
a
try it.
friends to lovers. It's a very slow burn. There's some emotional, getting like shared trauma feels, and but also Sawyer, like if she tends to lean towards like a mystery, a suspense, like if she likes Sawyer's Jameson Force, they're not over the top.
Okay.
Sexy. The romances are present, but there's enough intrigue and character building and journey.
Others. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have her try it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sawyer's always my first. Like,
yeah.
I know. We talk about her.
Kelly Jameson would be a good one to start with.
But not the audiobook. Like, there's a lot. Kelly's early books, because they're love swept. And so they're very sexy.
They're pretty sexy.
Oh, that's true.
And they have sex right in the beginning. And also
her Bears books would be good though, I think, for that.
Just public service announcement, cars are not soundproof.
Oh.
So if you pick up Erin's audiobooks to the Badges of the Bayou, do not listen in your car at loud volumes when you're picking your child up from theater.
Which one did you get caught listening to?
Well, Kelly Jameson's Major Misconduct. The hero was ferociously engaging in oral stuff. And
ferociously engaging.
Ferociously.
It was ferocious. Like, and I was just listening with my windows rolled up because earlier in the evening I got caught with my windows rolled down, and the guy in the car next to me heard
that's
things.
What's funny is it happened twice in the same night.
Because she thought the windows up would fix the problem.
Right. I mean, it was logical.
This was loud, though. I appreciate that you want those scenes. You don't want to miss a word.
I can't,
but
my
also
hearing
people
sucks anyway.
Appreciate the PSA.
And this guy's walking down the stairs because my daughter was working at the theater because she's older. And he is walking with his young child, and he looks into my window like, and I'm like,
sorry about that.
Stop, pause. Anyway, cars are not soundproof. Do you, so you like the Golden Retriever hero? Do you have any other kind of favorite heroes?
I really love the grumpy. I love the cinnamon roll. The grump who he's super grumpy with everybody, but then you find out that he has like a rescue dog that's blind, or he's really sweet with his grandma, or, like there's one thing that you're just like, oh, so yeah, I really love those guys. But yeah, if you put a guy in a suit and tell me he's an asshole, he's gonna boss everybody around, I'm like, okay.
You're gonna read that.
I'm in my daddy era. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't write those, but I also never say never about anything. Erin Nicholas readers will need to be eased into anything like that.
Well, I mean, you could write a zaddy.
Yeah, a zaddy is just an older, charming, charismatic guy. We just did our daddy episode. We just recorded it last night.
Ooh, I'll be there.
And we did the Pedro Pascal daddies. Like, we helped you figure out which one of his character, and we decided that the Red Viper from Game of Thrones is like the zaddy character.
Okay. I'll be there. I'll be all over that episode. I'm also very into age gap, and I am starting to write a little bit more of that. So I really like age gap, and my author friends, we were all trying to break down the tropes that we love and why, like trying to figure out if there's like some reason. We couldn't figure out why I like that one so much, but I really do.
So I think
like
either way, woman older, man older.
Yeah, I like the age gap just because I like the dynamic that there's angst. We talk about it in the episode a little bit, but I think it's the built-in angst that you have two people at two different places in their lives, and there's this attraction, but they have to figure out how to either find the middle or live within the other's realm.
Right.
And so you either have to step up or you have to back off. Yeah.
And everyone can understand it, right? Because like, even if you've never been in that situation, you can put yourself in the shoes of one or the other. Yeah.
Awesome.
So let's talk the Badges of the Bayou series, though. Okay. So you've written quite a few books in New Orleans over the past 5 years. Why New Orleans?
I get that question so much.
Okay, real quick, I just have to tell you, somebody was convinced you lived there, and I was like, no, I know where her P.O. box is, guys, because I mail her stuff, and it's not New Orleans, guys.
It's not New Orleans, and I'm going to caveat all this with, also the funny thing is, if you knew me well in real life, so I hate the heat and the humidity. I hate bugs. I'm not great with spicy food, not a big drinker. So like,
so New Orleans is like your like hell for you.
I know my children are like, what are you doing? First of all, I never go there in the summer. I learned that. I've been there once in July, and that was not a good idea.
Again.
But no, so this is the only way I can explain it. So I first went in 2015 with some girlfriends. It was a writer retreat. And I walked into the French Quarter, and I just was like, home. I don't know. It was just, I have no idea. So what I tell people is, I think I must have lived there in a past life. If you believe in that stuff, I don't know. That's my only explanation, because it is not my kind of place. It's opposite of where I live now and grew up. But every time I'm there, I just have this like, I just feel it. I don't know. I just have a spiritual connection to it. So strangely, I don't really know, but I fell in love with it, have been back so many times. Went back about 3 times with friends. And then my husband said, and we travel a lot, we've traveled all over. And he said to me, hey, maybe I'd like to go to New Orleans. And I was like, well, here's the thing about it. If you go to New Orleans with me and you ruin it for me and you don't like it, I'm going to have to leave you. So, so think hard about this. And he's like, I'm going. That's it. I'm totally going. I don't know.
It was worth the risk.
Loves it. So we go once a year, sometimes a couple times if we have a reason to go. So yeah, it's just our place. He felt the same way. It's just our place. And so I was waiting for the right time to write a series there. I always knew I wanted to, but I wanted it to be the right thing and the right time. And then it just was. All of a sudden it just was. I actually pitched. So the first book in the Big Easy series is actually with Montlake. And I pitched the Bayou series to them, Boys of the Bayou. And they said, my editor wanted it, her boss wanted it, everybody wanted it. And then it got to marketing. And marketing said, I don't think the swamp is that sexy. So they said, how about New Orleans? And I was like, okay, sure. But can I connect these 2 series? Because I'm going to do this one anyway. They said, yeah, that'd be great. So I kind of wrote them at the same time, and they're connected. And so New Orleans was born from that. I was really just going to do Bayou, but I'm glad I did both. And then Bayou did great. So I think they were wrong about the swamp being sexy. I found a group of people who think it's okay.
I love the dynamic that comes from
How do you
the swamp.
pronounce the town?
Autre.
Okay. It's way easier than we were thinking.
It's a French word. That's not how you say it in French. It means beginning or first, but then I Americanized it, as Americans do to all the things.
As one
does. And I had no idea there would be, 30 books or whatever it is in this series. So, you make up a town and you just go, oh, let's call it this. So yeah,
I love it. I love it. I also think New Orleans is great and the swamp is great. I mean, we read several series that take place and have importance within the bayous of Louisiana. And it's the culture. It's like its own
Unlike
place. It's its own universe within the US that it has its own culture. It has its own food, and it's so neat.
It's very unlike anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I have a funny story that goes back to Kelly Jameson, actually. That 2015 trip I took, Kelly was there and everybody else left. And Kelly and Jennifer Bernard and I were the last ones to leave. And we decided to take a swamp boat tour. And the captain of our boat was charming and funny and handsome and took his shirt off and dove into the bayou. And I think that's where the seed.
And you're like, I'm going to write a book about that.
So look at how everything comes back around. Yeah. So Kelly was there for that.
She's a hoot too. Like, you give that lady a glass of wine and I'm not sure there's anything she won't do.
The filter goes out the window. There's no filter once Kelly has wine.
She's hilarious. We've known each other for years and years. Yeah.
Okay. You asked that question. Oh, Leah, you're going to ask your next question?
I don't know. We're bouncing around. Leo and Ellie Landry.
Oh,
Are they based on real people, or are they figments of your imagination?
Mostly they are figments, but Ellie is loosely based on a woman I know here in my little town who I go to church with. So like some of her mannerisms and just her, general, like, no bullshit ways. She's loosely based on this woman, but for the most part, yeah, just kind of made them up.
And for those of
you
who don't know who Ellie and Leo are, they are the grandparents of like the whole Bayou, like Landry clan.
Everybody. Yeah.
So, who are big. There's a lot. How do you keep them straight?
Well, I have them written down somewhere, and then I depend heavily on my beta readers and my editor. I have this little group of readers who I can go, have I ever named anybody this, or whatever? And if they don't know, they'll go look for me. But I'll tell you, I tell my readers this. So secondary characters, I have a hard time with. I've named, I think, 6 secondary characters across all my series, like Drew. I have like 6 Drews, and I have like, I don't know, 3 other things. But my main characters, I always remember. I don't have a hard time with them. So it's not hard to remember names. Ages, yes, absolutely. And who,
who
sure.
belongs to who.
Sometimes. And I just always kind of give disclaimers, like, it's Erin Nicholas world. Anything can happen.
It's funny because Lanny Lynn Vale, at the beginning of some of her books, she's like, baby math does not exist in my life. Like, just ignore it. Timelines are just all over the place.
I just wish we could make that a rule. I just wish we could make that a rule.
And
it makes readers so mad, though. Like, it really does. Like, they keep track.
If I know going into it that like baby math is like not a factor, it doesn't bug me.
I don't mind off baby math or off timelines or skipping around in time. What I get bonkers about is when you totally forget that this person had 7 children and you never mention the 4th, 6th, or 7th child. Then I start to wonder, like, did they die?
Where did they go?
Did they move to Mars? What happened to these people?
Are they figments of our imagination?
And you start to think, maybe I got that wrong. And, there's so many readers who read so much. I always kind of hope they think, oh, it's just me.
I usually do think it's me because, again, bad with names.
Yeah. I'm just gonna, it's you guys. It's not us. We would never do something like that.
Okay, so Badges of the Bayou, they are all 3 somehow involved in law enforcement.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I guess it's firefighting. I'm not sure firefighting is. They'll wear badges.
They wear like uniform-ish
First responders.
Things. First responders.
The protectors.
So I have to say, I laughed about Spencer. Like, he and his heroine's name is Max, right?
Maxine, yeah. She was by Max. Yeah.
Like, she's like, I'm not going with you. Like, I really don't care. And he's like, you will come with me. And he's so serious. And I do like that about your characters, because often one is really serious about everything and like danger around every corner. And the other's like, yeah, whatever.
Let's have some penguins while we're at it. Yeah, I know. I love that dynamic. Maxine is basically my daughter, which I did not realize until after I had read the book, like finished the book and then read it back through. I was like, oh, well, I guess I know where I got this inspiration. So so Guy's going to have to work kind of hard, and they were actually secondary characters in another book. The Louisiana world is complicated. I don't think you have to read them all and read them in order.
No,
because Becky machetes everything.
Well, and I read the Badge of the Bayou, but I'll be very honest. I started with Bayou with Benefits first.
Oh, okay.
Which, because, well, these are my catnip. A single dad, and she's a social media influencer model person. So I love fish out of water, particularly like in a rom-com type situation. If you can give me fish out of water and do it well, like, you've sold me on your books. And so I started here with Michael and Amelia first. And then I went back and read Spencer and Maxine.
And then you flopped.
So you don't really have to read them in order, I don't think. But I will say that all of the people in Badges show up as very fringe characters, secondary characters in other stories. So that they are not brand new to readers, who have come along the whole time. And you can go back and definitely see Max and Spencer interact in another book. If you like Fish Out of Water on the Bayou, Beauty in the Bayou.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
That's the whole book. That's everything. That's Juliet. Yeah.
I just so what I think is great about Fish Out of Water, if it's done well, which in the one book, I think you did it phenomenally well.
Thank you.
Is that this was not a space that was outside of her understanding. She's a Landry. So
right.
But she's gone to the point where it's just not her thing anymore. It's the disconnect. And she has to try to figure out how to be her again. But I don't want it to be so over the top, slapstick funny.
Right.
I'm such a picky reader.
Right. You can be, Lord, why not be picky? There's a million books, right? That's what I always figure with people, people who love DNF books, books.
But I feel like there's a time and a place for the slapstick. If it's something that you really need in that moment, then it works. But yours are funny, but they're subtly funny at the same time. Not that I totally laughed out loud multiple times, but it's not so in your face.
I think that's
honestly, I feel like I'm Max in a lot of ways.
I like humor that comes from who they are,
right?
Than things that happen to them.
Yeah.
I like when humor is because of who they are and they put themselves in some situation they're not comfortable with, but somebody else might be. Like the goats, Spencer and Max. Max is at this
when the goat bites her ass,
and it's get away. Most people are like, oh, baby goats, and she was kind of like, what's happening right now? So
I'm not going to share my apples with you.
Yeah. Right. Why are you here? So I like that kind of humor versus slip on a banana peel kind of humor. So
yeah.
Well, and you have a lot, animals are a big part of this whole Bayou series. You have the whole petting zoo and all of that aspects, but I like that too, because it's you use those floofs in a good way.
They've become, gosh, that was so much fun. I tell you what, so I wrote Boys of the Bayou, and I had Tori, who basically collects special needs animals. I mean, she's a veterinarian, that's her thing. And I was like, oh my God, I just love this girl so much. And I can't quite drop that, and then we have Gus the otter, and we have all this stuff. And I said to my editor, I'm obsessed with giraffes. That's my thing. I love giraffes. And I said to my editor one day, I was just kind of being goofy. And I said, I've been writing for a really long time. And I feel like at some point, if I can't write a book that has a giraffe in it, I failed somehow. She's like, I know you can figure out a way to have a giraffe in the book. And that's how that series, I was like, well, then let's do a bunch of, why not penguins?
Why not?
All this stuff. It just kind of went from there. So yeah, Gone Wild was kind of a, let's just
do what I want this time.
Let's see what we can do.
Yeah.
So Susie asked in the chat, do these need to be read in order? And Susie, I'm going to always tell you no, because I think that's one of the things that we talk about a lot is if an author is going to title a book as a interconnected standalone, put the word standalone on it, the story itself has to stand on its own. That's a testament to the skill of the author. And these books absolutely do stand on their own. You'll get glimpses of other characters and you might say, ooh, do they have a book? And then I went over and I looked and I saw they did. And I'm like, okay,
I would say Gone Wild, the Boys of the Bayou Gone Wild is the only series I think I even have that I would tell you is probably best read in order, just because they're building this animal park and the whole crew is in every single book. If you like that kind of thing, some people eat that up. Huge cast. If you like that series is for you. If that drives you crazy.
But there's not so many people on page that it's overwhelming. And I think that's part of the thing too. There's a big cast to it, but it's not you're throwing so many people that it's confusing as to who they are. Because the way you introduce them, everybody has a place and a reason for being on the page. So it's not just a random sighting of 6 people.
Right. They all have a reason. And I will say I put one scene in every one of those books where the whole group is together. Otherwise, it's just a few here and there. I just will never forget. I have a review up on Goodreads for that series. I don't remember which book it is. Might be flipping love you, which is book 3. Anyway, it's a 5-star, so it's a very nice review. And she goes, but there's so many fucking people. And it was super funny because I was like, I mean, I can't like argue with that. Like there are. So, you know, there's a lot of people. But I will say in those books, I have at the front of the book a list of the the people. So you can flip back. Who the hell is this? Yeah. But that's the only series that's kind of each book builds on the last one a little bit, like external plot wise. But it's still, the love stories are each obviously standalone. But
I think I read those ones out of order. And I don't
Which one did you do a quick shot on, Leah?
Utterly Irresistible.
Okay.
That's book 1.
That's book 1. But I know that I read like one of the other ones before I read that one.
Oh, okay.
And I typically do not read. I know. I typically do not read series out of order because it stresses me out a little bit. Sometimes I accidentally do it.
Yeah, of course. Readers ask me all the time, and I'm the worst person to ask because I never read series in order. I read books based on if they sound good or not. And it's like, oh, it's a series. Well, then I'll go back and read the first 5. So I never get worried about that.
So
that's how Becky, I do it.
Like when I first started doing the podcast, like eons ago, Becky wanted me to read this Maya Banks book. And I was like, oh, okay, that sounds really good. But it was like book 8. And at that time, like I refused to read books out of order. So I had to read all 8 books.
But you've learned.
I have learned. It was delightful. It was not a bad thing to do.
I feel like it's community service when we read out of order. We're doing the Lord's work. My only problem is sometimes I'll pick up a book because I don't read blurbs. Like
I heard you say that one day. I was like, wow, that's like
I don't read blurbs.
It's rolling the dice.
It's really a title that can sell me in a cover. So I don't read blurbs. And I picked up a book because I was doing research for our Mafia episode. And I picked up a book to read because the title sounded great and with the tropes listed. And then I didn't know it was a trilogy. And then I was really angry. She rage read.
That's different.
The book.
But no, it was clearly marked in the blurb that it is a trilogy, but I at least started with book 1 and didn't pick up in the middle. But that
thankfully, yeah, because book 3 that might be a little awkward.
Could you imagine how you would have rage read that out of order?
Okay, that series out of order though might have been better.
See, I love it. I have to tell you guys, the thing I love the best about your podcast, for years, my editor, because authors, we sit around and we talk about tropes, we talk about trends, we talk about other books, you know, other authors' books. But we were always like, my editor said like a million times, we wish we could have a focus group of readers, right? Because it's different when you read as a reader versus a reader. And I feel like that's what your podcast is. Like, it's so great to listen to readers break down what you like, what you don't like, the tropes, the trends, all these different things. I find it quite insightful as an author.
I'm glad, because we're like chaotic, and I'm sitting here thinking, if people take our
advice, a bunch of friends sitting around talking about books, though. It's so great.
I mean, it is. It is. Becky and I actually recorded an episode recently too about the 3rd act breakup.
Yeah,
and we did the episode a little bit differently. So it's
not as scripted, and we didn't like
scripted
give
at all. And we just were like throwing out books.
Yeah.
Like if you
there's a huge author discussion recently in an author group that's just authors about the 3rd act breakup. So now I can't wait to hear your episode. I'm curious how these two things match up, or if they even do. They probably
you'll have to let us know what you think after you listen to it.
I will. I'm so curious. So,
but if Amanda is here watching the live, and so just so you know, Amanda,
we are sorry.
We're sorry.
We're very sorry.
So Amanda is helping me create our wiki so that we can tag every book that we've ever mentioned in an episode.
So she's writing them down, typing them, but like she's keeping like a log. And Becky and I did not do a good job on that episode.
We didn't. Like, there's no TBR. Like, I have to listen to the episode to create the TBR in our on the shelf show notes.
Yeah. I don't know how you guys keep.
Amanda,
you guys have so much content.
It was a hot mess, but it was really fun to record. To be honest,
it was so great. Okay, Leah has a question here about food and drink connected to your books. Aside from hotcakes, is there a conscious
Oh.
decision or just this just happens to be the direction you go?
Just happens. Yeah. It a lot of times just happens. Obviously I really like food and otters. You can tell what things I like in my life, in my books, that's for sure. It just happens. It started off, I had it a lot in a few of my early books, and then my readers noticed.
Mhm.
They started expecting it. So then it became a little bit more intentional. Then I thought I could get away from it. And after, like after the series ended or whatever. And then I found I just kind of naturally do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, are there recipes in the book for the different foods that you mentioned? Do you put recipes together?
Sometimes it depends if they're making something specific to the book, like something that would be a special recipe. Otherwise, they're just having sex with cupcakes and stuff.
Leah likes a good food.
I do like a good food.
There's a lot of that.
So I do
but
have a question about like the hotcake series.
yeah.
Like what was the inspiration for that series? Because I love that series, and those are some top-notch pun titles, just so
Oh,
you know.
thank you. So that series, I love it too. It was a 2020 series though, so everybody can go, no, it sucks. It was right after Boys of the Bayou. And I thought, oh, well, I should do a series somewhere other than Louisiana so that people don't think that's all I write. And so I was like, oh, well, let's do Iowa because everyone wants to read about books set in Iowa. No, I'm kidding. But I've written a ton of books in Nebraska. Why not?
That's actually how I found you, was the Twisted Up, like
Oh,
the
I'm
Tornado
glad.
series.
The Tornado, that's how everybody refers to that series. That's what we should have called it. So I've written a ton of books set in Nebraska, where I grew up. I wrote a series set in Kansas. So we're like, let's just keep it Midwest. That can just be kind of part of your brand, is the Midwest. So then I picked Iowa because I had never done one and I live here. But I picked the interesting side of the state. So it's like the opposite side of the state, not where I live. And so that's how that came out. And actually I don't remember. I mean, it was just brainstorming, and it was just like, I want these people to be like rivals. Like I love the rivals to lovers, not so much enemies, right? But like rivals. And I just was like all the tropes: brother's best friend, second chance, boss employee, like all of the tropes. I just gave every book a trope and figured out how to make that all work. And I always plan my series. Like before I write book one, I know what all the 6 books are going to be. So I knew.
I love that. Well, but then you tie that series back into like Louisiana, which I like too.
Well, and that was my my publicist, I think, was the one who said, now you need a crossover book, because we decided to go back to Louisiana. She's like, take them with you, make a crossover book. And I was like, Mitch needs a book. Mitch was the one Bayou guy I had not given a book to. So I was like, this will be perfect. So it all just really worked out well. And they fit together really well. All those characters just really blend nicely. The tone of the series is very similar.
Do you think you'll go back to Iowa ever, or
maybe? Yeah, maybe. I love
like
that
a second gen series, perhaps.
I have a couple series I would love to do second gen. I want to know from readers how long after a series does it have to be before you can do second gen?
It could be like the next month, honestly.
I think Natasha Madison, what does she do? It's been
She'll
like
do
4
like 4
years.
books. Well, but it's not even that, because like it'll be like 2 years, because the Made for series, like this series is only like 4 years old, but her Southern series, the first 3 books are first gen. Book 4 of the first 4 was a second gen book. So she even did like,
okay,
because Natasha does 4 books at a time.
She does.
And so like, but her Southern series, book 1, 2, and 3 were original. Book 4 was second gen, and then book 4, 5, 6, no, then 5, 6, 7, 8 were second gen also.
Oh, so the last book kind of jumped to the new one. And I know Melanie Harlow did second gen. It was what, a couple of years? I don't know how many years between
Cloverleaf Farms to the new ones. I think it was just 3 years, wasn't it?
3 years, yeah.
Because she had Bellamy Creek. I think as long as it's not back to back, like if you do the first gen and then go to another series or grouping of books and then come back to it and then do the second gen.
There's a break. Yeah.
I've had time for them.
Yeah. I'd love to do second gen or just go back and do something else.
Mhm.
I fall very in love with my towns, and I spend so much time developing the town that it's kind of like, now I'm leaving. And now I have to make another one up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I just wanna
honestly, as I was
stay
reading that Hot Cake series, I was like, oh, like I would love to visit this town. Like it was such a cool little town. And I mean, I live in a really small town. So like I love a small town.
there.
But yeah, I really enjoyed that series a lot. I
Thank you.
recommend
Well,
it a lot too.
thank you. Well, Drew Ryan, as you know, he was actually not supposed to be a Bayou book. He was supposed to continue on that series. And
Oh
then,
yeah.
well, we're going to go back to the Bayou. Well, now I need a guy, a crossover guy. So he
Mhm.
got assigned to the Bayou. But he's got a brother and a cousin. So
He
we could
went
go
as
back.
tribute. He was tribute to the
Yeah,
He
to the
was.
he was
Bayou.
really upset about it too.
Very sad.
He's devastated.
Devastated. It was terrible.
Susie says if the characters are good, any generation goes. And
Okay.
Karen thinks you write really great small town.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I started doing it because, back in the day, the adage was write what you know. And
Mhm.
Sapphire Falls was my kind of breakout series. That is
Mhm.
basically everywhere I've ever lived and grown up is
Yeah.
Sapphire Falls. So
We
with
write
way hotter guys.
But you write a lot of first responders though, because you have
I
like a
did.
whole first responder series,
I
which actually
did.
you just rebranded that, didn't you?
I did. Yeah. And that comes from, I was actually, I guess I don't practice, but I'm licensed. I'm a physical therapist.
Mhm.
And so I worked in a small town hospital. And so knew all those guys. They were always hot. The farmers, not as much, but the first responders always were. And so that's where that came from too. So it was always kind of things I knew and didn't have
Mhm.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just rebranded it. I felt like it needed, reread the books. I was like, these stories are still, solid. Like
Mhm.
it still works. The titles they didn't really say what they were. And I was like, they need a fresh look and they need hot
Mhm.
guys in the front. So so we just were like, what the heck? Let's just put some new titles and covers on there. That won't be confusing for anyone. And so re-released all of those just,
Mhm.
a couple months ago. So I really love the new
I
title.
do. I honestly like they're really like eye-catching
Yeah.
and like
I
I
love
think it blends well with like your newer like
Yeah.
style of books too.
Well, and the titles are just, they say what they are. Like the old titles really didn't. And I was reading back through and I'm like, yeah, there's like a main trope in every one of these books. Let's just put that right up front. So, yeah. So that was fun.
Jenny says the first responders here are not hot. And I will concur with her because we live in Northwest Ohio and they are not hot. Maybe it's the corn of Iowa.
Maybe
Jenny.
it is. Maybe it is. These guys are set in Omaha, Nebraska, believe it or not, that story, that series. And I remember my editor going, well, people are going to learn where Omaha is. I don't know if anyone knows. And I was like, do you want me to move it? And she's like, nope, I think we leave it in Omaha. So
I think you leave it.
For better or worse.
Karen says the Sapphire series was great and your covers are really catchy. She likes your covers.
Yeah, we've recovered that series maybe 4 times, 2 or 3, 4 or 5 times. I don't know, but I love the ones that are on there
Okay, so
now.
I have to ask the question.
Yeah.
What prompts an author to make the choice to recover? Is it really following trends? Is it just a matter of I need to freshen it up so new readers find it? What's the thought process? Because we're just kind of curious.
Yeah. Both of those things. And I think when a series is older and just not selling as well, you want to do something fresh with it so that when people scroll, and they're like, oh, I've seen that. You scroll and you suddenly see a new thing, you're going to stop. Or if it's more on trend, it looks more like the other books or, that kind of thing. Absolutely. It's all about meeting the new trends, trying to keep the books alive and selling and whatever. So and I think that authors get tired of their covers too.
Sure.
I do, like we've stared at it for 8 years and it's like, let's do something different with it. So I tell people it's a lot like, freshening up paint in your living room or buying new clothes for a new season. Sometimes you just need a new look. So
well, you have hot guy covers. Are you toying with special edition covers or object covers?
Of course.
Can we get a cover with an otter and a giraffe on it?
I know, right? Well, I have for that series, I have special edition covers for that series in my Etsy store. They are illustrated and they all have the animals on them.
Did we know this, Leah?
It's like the artist took the cover and illustrated it so it looks just like the cover, but then she added whatever.
You said in your Etsy store?
On my Etsy store. It's Erin Nicholas books. I'm not sure. If you go to Etsy and just search Erin Nicholas, it'll pull up.
Mother's Day is coming up,
right
Leah.
now.
Mother's
So I
Day is
have
coming.
those. But yes, of course, I'm thinking of that. Now, I personally am a person who, boo hiss, I know, I really like illustrated covers. So I'm always drawn to those. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that not everybody likes those. So I think it's a quandary.
I like them if they fit the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
get
of course,
stressed out when we get these object covers or illustrated covers, and it's this deeply emotional, dark story. And there was like
Absolutely.
cute, bright colors on the front of it. And I'm like,
No doubt about it.
huh,
No doubt about it.
one of these things. Leah's shopping right now.
No, look how
Aren't they
adorable this
cute?
is. Look at that.
Aren't they cute? It's got the
Oh.
little llama on it. Alpaca. It's actually an alpaca. The artist did a fantastic job. My favorite is probably the giraffe or the otter, but yeah.
I'm with you, Patty. I like a hot guy cover just because,
No, but look at
here's
the
the reason.
penguin one. Wait,
Well, I
hold it
can't
on.
see
It
it.
has to load.
Look
Look at that.
See,
He's hugging the
lap.
He is hugging the penguin while he hugs her.
I see.
Oh,
did
Erin,
that.
why did you tell us about this?
I'm so sorry. I'm not
She's
sorry at
really
all.
not sorry.
I'm not a
Not.
tiny bit sorry about that.
Guys, she has a lot of really cute stuff in this store.
Mother's Day is coming, Leah.
I'm a thing girl. I love swag. I love boxes. I love all that stuff.
Oh,
I'm
a
but
fool
yeah,
for
no,
it all.
I am thinking about objects. I'll tell you I'm just gonna admit it here in public. I'm so tired of flowers. I can't even tell you. Like, if I see another flower cover and the girl is not a botanist or something, I'm gonna scream.
So it made me so happy last week on TikTok. What somebody did, like one of the larger book talkers, she was like, can we stop putting freaking flowers on our covers unless she's a gardener, a landscaper, or a botanist? I do not want to see flowers.
If it has to do with the story, I'm in. I'm all in. You know, it's great. Like when I was reading Lucy Score's book and he called her Daisy, she had daisies in her hair. I was like, this is cute, right? This is great. But you guys, enough with the flowers, please. I'm begging my fellow authors. There are other things we can do. But yeah, so I think it's tough though. I think it's hard. That's the hardest part. But I completely support the idea of alternate covers. I completely understand why people want them. I saw the cutest TikTok and it was this girl. I mean, she's in high school. Like that doesn't normally come across my For You page, you know, like we've curated or whatever. But she's in high school and she was reading The Love Hypothesis, which is not a racy cover, right? And it's illustrated and whatever. And she said that she was getting teased so badly reading that at school in study hall that she stopped taking her book to school. And I'm like, even that, you know, so I understand. I really do. Like for me, I'll go anywhere with any book and I don't care what people think, but we can't say that for just everybody.
No. And we've learned there are reasons, and we have members in our community who have shared, you know, based on their culture. One of our community members is Latinx, and with her, you know, the culture being, you know, the men the way that they are and the misogyny, they can't. And we've also had people share that if they ride public transit, they can't, and they prefer to read on paperback. My problem is I read 99% on my Kindle, and the paperbacks are just pretty.
They're pretty
collections.
I couldn't tell you the last time I read a paperback because honestly, a cracked spine stresses me out.
Mine is my eyes. I like to be able to like make the text gigantic on my Kindle.
I had to go to bifocals.
When Becky takes pictures of her Kindle, I have to giggle because it's real big.
It's so big. And I read mostly at night when I go to bed. And for some reason, my husband thinks it needs to be dark in the room to sleep. I don't know. It's rude. And so I like the
backlit. Well, but the backlit Paperwhite was like a game changer for me for that. I was like, yes.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, so I don't read paperbacks. The only paperbacks I really ever own anymore are mine.
Oh no, I like the trophies. And as somebody who lived through the recovers of From the Clinches to the Objects with some step backs in there, onto, what we got in the objects of the early 2000s and stuff like that,
Right.
I'm all for it. And I own
Yeah.
multiple editions
I
of
love that.
books, especially the historical mass paperbacks. Like
Oh yeah.
I'm obsessed with The Raider, as you can see, the Barbie. I'm obsessed with Jude Devereaux's The Raider, and I'm only missing one cover and a hardback.
Oh,
And
that's so
so
cool. I love that kind of reader energy. I love that. You know what I'm really into? I love watching the book talk videos when people are annotating. I am so into that. I know that must make some people cringe, but I am so into watching those
Leah
videos.
struggles
I love
with
when they
it.
do that.
I do.
But
We
I think
actually we were doing an annotating project that kind of fizzled out. And it honestly, it
it was
stressed
stressing
me
her
out.
out.
It was very stressful.
I can understand.
Writing in that book and
I think it
highlighting and
comes from being a library kid, though, too, Leah, and also
Yeah,
well,
how
on
we can.
dog-eared pages, I can't even
you gotta
handle
have two
that.
copies. You
But
gotta
if
have
you
two
think
copies.
of how we consumed books from our mothers, the paperback
Yeah.
that went from house to house,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you wanted to leave it in as nice as condition as you could
You gotta
so
keep
that
it
the
going.
next person that got the sack of books,
It was it was new to them.
Right.
It had that new
Right.
book smell.
I think you just got to start buying two copies, and one is going to sit and be pretty, and one's going to be just loved.
Yeah, my
It's
husband would
loved.
probably have a coronary
I
if I
was going to
started
say,
doing that.
when I got,
Did you hear that, Mike and Mike?
Yeah. when I first got mine first Nook, he looked around the house because I had paperbacks everywhere, back of the toilet, by the couch, by the bed, on the floor in front of the TV. And he was like, so we can get rid of books, right? And I was like, no, all your books are right here. And really, honestly, I did get rid of quite a bit, and I only bought books digitally, or really I borrowed books for 7 years. I couldn't afford books, so I just borrowed from my library. And when I started working and publishing in 2019, and I would get books sent to me, and then I would start buying books, and books started coming, he's like, oh my God. But he's so cool about it. I can't complain.
Well, and that was we moved 3 years, it was a little over 3 years ago. But when we were talking about moving, he's like, you need to get rid of some of your books because I don't want to move them all.
Exactly.
I'm like, we're moving down the hill. We're moving from one tiny, we moved maybe a half a mile away. We're not far from our old house.
That's almost worse. I have to pack all this crap for half a mile.
Oh, it was, yeah. But he was like, I don't want to move that. I'm like, but they're all my books.
Right.
I did get rid of a lot, though. I will say that.
Erin,
Moving's the
Susie
best
wants to
thing.
know if you have a favorite author outside of you. Is there somebody
Oh.
you like? Do you have a one-click? Do you have a one-click author?
I have a few. I will tell you, my very favorite all time, I have every one of her books, I've read them multiple times, is Susan Elizabeth Phillips. She's my go-to. I found her shortly after my mother introduced me to Liberal Spencer. So Susan Elizabeth Phillips is my very favorite all time.
She's the OG of Erin Nicholas.
Yeah, she really is. She was the first person I was like, oh, it can be sexy and funny and, have this whole plot. I just loved it. But I mean, there's a lot of people I one-click. Kaylee Loring, her books delight me. They're just fun. And, I always read her. I read a lot of Pippa Grant. I like the funny girls.
That's cool. I like
the
that.
funny light girls. So yeah, but I read these dark, I read eclectically. So I'll read a couple rom-coms, then I'll read something dark, and then I definitely have to go back to my rom-coms, and then I have sports. Right now I'm reading Emily Rath's is it Pucking Around? Yeah.
Oh,
right?
Is that her Why Choose?
Yeah.
That book's causing a little bit of a flutter over on the Twitter.
Ooh,
because
I'm reading it, but tell me more. I'm only about 30% in.
No, not anything bad, just that it's 800 pages and some. Zoe York and I were talking about it.
Is it 800 pages?
Yeah, earlier this week, Zoe York and I were talking about it because somebody made a comment about basically it's someone that works with TradPub, but is a sought after person for other things,
Yes.
podcast. They were stating that, of course, authors that are being trained to write for page reads are going to publish 800 pages books. And I said to Zoe, I said, this has extreme elitist feels to me, that basically you need 800 pages to write a story. I could do the same in 300.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, so I messaged Zoe. I'm like, why do people clamor for this person? Like, I put my petty pants on, and then Leah had to be like, Becky, sit down.
I love Zoe. Zoe's smart about everything. So anything Zoe York says, I believe, and
Yeah.
will follow and do. I have that feel sometimes too, but I guess to me, if you're writing a story about 4 people and the way she's developing it so far, she's very much developing each one of them and each of their
Yeah.
relationships. It's going to take some time
It is.
and some
It
space,
absolutely is.
you know? I won't say that I haven't read some 700-page books going, why are we still going though?
Mhm.
We talk about this. We talk about it
Both sides.
often, like that it feels overwritten. There's extra pages. We didn't need all of this. Why couldn't we have cut this out? But I have that feeling sometimes in a 300-page book.
For sure. Like we could have stopped this like at chapter 6.
Right.
We're done.
Mhm.
And then,
For sure.
you know, sometimes read a book and I'm still confused if
Well,
it's
that's-
done or
and
not.
that's the thing. Like I've read some amazing
For sure.
novellas, like 150-page novellas that are like a really well like established like thought out story, but they're
Yeah.
like they're an author who's like a novella knack. Like they thrive in that novella setting.
Yep.
But then I've read like 400-page books where it's like I still don't know what's going on here,
Are we,
people.
yeah, we're wrapped up. That's the
Yeah.
end.
It's like that's how it finished.
That's where I am
You
right
couldn't
now.
finish this in 400 pages.
I think that's why I like my Kindle, because then I don't know how long the book is, and I'm just going to read the story.
That's exactly it. Okay, so
I just have the percentage read like showing.
Maybe that because last night, because she tricked me, Emily Rath, you tricked me, read the novella prequel, thought I'll just read that for tonight and then I'll start the book tomorrow. Sure enough, had to start that first chapter, and yeah, I was like looking at the bottom going, wow, I'm not really that far in. So that's why. Now I know why.
Yep. Okay, so Boys of the Bayou, it's available, or Badges of the Bayou.
Badges of the Bayou.
Badges of the
Oh,
Bayou.
Boys of the Bayou too. So
yeah, it's all
Ebook,
available.
Paperback,
all the Bayous.
audiobooks,
Yeah.
except the last one is still coming, but it'll be up soonish.
It's so good. It's Connor Crace. Okay, and my hero in that book has an Irish accent.
Yes.
Oh,
Connor Crace. And you guys, it's a group of guy friends. They're bodyguards, right? One is British. There are 2 guys with Irish accents and 1 American. And they're in the scene together, like multiple scenes together. He nails it. Like he gets every one of those. You can tell.
when does the
Connor is
audio
a
drop?
god.
Because
Yeah,
I may have to
it's
listen
being
to this
reviewed by ACX right now. So like whenever they get through it. So 8 days from now, you know,
Okay.
whatever. How long
I
it
had
takes.
to
So
steal
I'll
one of
let
Mike's
you know.
credits.
It is so.
I don't have any credits left. I have to wait.
I'll send you a code.
That makes me so happy.
I'll send you a code. Remind me. I'm telling you, I'm so proud of it. It's not me, it's Connor.
Connor
Well,
creates
I
all
like-
the flutters.
I like a Connor.
There's
all
a
the
reason.
flutters.
There's a
And I
reason.
am-
He also did the audio for Utterly Irresistible.
See, I'm new to the audiobook world. Like because I read really fast. And so like I had to hang up because like why would I listen to a book when I can read it in like a third of the time?
I get it.
But so I discovered that if I read or if I listen to books that I've read before, then I have no
Oh.
problem with it.
That's so interesting. That
Mhm.
makes sense though. I used to listen to them on and off when I was commuting to work, and then of course wasn't. So there were years I didn't, but then I started having a long drive when my dad got sick, and they saved me. So yeah, I'm a fan now.
Well, and I don't commute anywhere, and like where we live, like at our old house, like we walked everywhere, and like our new house, like we
Yeah.
just- I mean, like our commute for like most everything is a 5-minute commute, so there's not a lot of travel time.
Audiobooks will keep me on the treadmill longer than like the 10 minutes that I want to get off.
I get my
so
house clean
it's fine.
today. I listened to an audiobook. My house was clean, even so much so that my husband came home and he's like, wow, you were really busy today. And I was like, the audiobook is really good.
And we can tell ourselves that we're working,
Right?
because we have to do this. I mean, it's research. I have to listen to Connor read my book, of
It's
course.
true, you do.
Sexy accent. Yeah.
It's a delight for
Yeah,
my
he
ears.
gives all the flutters. That's
Oh, he's got, for good reason. I mean, he's very talented to be able to do that.
I think
So,
he's
yeah.
one of those too that's just starting to come into the market and be top tier.
I'm telling you.
You know, I have some audiobook narrators that I love. Like I love John Lane, but you don't
I don't
hear
know.
him a ton. He
No.
does all of Rena Morgan's books, and if you haven't read Rena Morgan, here's my pitch: read Rena Morgan. Um,
Yes.
Leah, she has a series in New Orleans. They're
I was
mafia
waiting for
guys.
it. I was waiting for
Oh,
a Rena
there we,
Morgan like
there we
shout out
go.
there.
Yeah.
Be nice, Leah.
They are
Anyway,
delightful books.
but the audios are really good, and John Lane does them with Russian accents, and they're really delightful.
Oh, yeah.
He does a great job. So
I have a few that I'm a fan of, but I'll listen to whoever. Like if I want, if I want to listen to the book, I'll listen to whoever
Yeah.
pretty much. But
Mhm.
okay, tell everybody what's next for you, Erin.
yeah, so so the badges, the last book of the badges series is a bodyguard, and his friends are also bodyguards, and they happen to be bodyguards for a couple of princes who have abdicated their throne, though, so they are not actually princes, they are reluctant royals. And so I'm writing the first prince's book, and it's a royals book. I don't know what my readers are going to think of that, but it's still very Erin Nicholas.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Is it a little
And he owns-
Harry Spare kind of feeling to
a little
it?
bit, yeah. So like they all left their country, which of course I made up, which I know also annoys people. So like I have all these like makeups.
I'd rather have a made up country because then I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, but he owns a ranch, so he's also a cowboy. So he's actually like a cowboy prince. So we're just gonna throw all that in there. And he's convinced the heroine to be in a marriage of convenience with him because he needs her to help him do something with his country, save his country.
Does she like him?
She not so much. She's very, I mean, she's like,
I'm loving all of this.
Yeah, she's
so
like,
much.
She hates cowboys, and she says that to her sisters in a bar, and all the women gasp. She's like, I hate cowboys, I hate cows, I don't want to do any.
Oh my goodness, I am so excited for this.
She's grumpy, but it's ridiculous and over the top, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go for it, and we'll see what my readers think. They already know the characters, so I think
very excited.
Well, I'm glad.
When is this coming out?
I don't know yet. I haven't set a release date yet. I know. This is the first time, and this is the first time in like years I haven't had like a release date when the last book released, so it's stressing me out. So tell me, go write that damn book tomorrow.
Karen, we don't know a release date yet, but hopefully soon.
Please go write that book because I am.
Thank you for telling me you're excited, because I think about it and I go, this is so crazy. It's a Pippa Grant. It feels like a Pippa Grant book. Like it's
I love
bizarre.
This.
She's kind of there
like cowboy
for
country, but she hates cowboys.
Yeah, she's been assigned there for work because he made her bosses assign her to the ranch. He thinks it's her dream job for reasons, and when he shows up, she's like, "You sent me to Wyoming in the winter. I've been stuck with cowboys for 3 months, and it's all your fault."
I love this so much.
And then he's like, "Oh, and I was gonna propose." She's like, "You're nuts."
He's gonna get a dick punch.
It's gonna be a problem.
Oh, I can't wait. This sounds fantastic.
It does. It really does.
Guys, if you aren't following Erin on Amazon, make sure you do that so that you can see when books are going up, when we were going to get this for a pre-sale. Also,
Sunday, 2023.
Also, books are in Kindle Unlimited, so make sure you check her out. And book 1 in the Badges of the Bayou is currently free.
Yes.
So make sure you grab that. Erin, thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on completing Badges of the Bayou series.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me talk about it. You guys were a delight, as I knew you would be. Anytime.
We are always happy to have you back. I am back tomorrow night with Alta Hensley and Renee Rose and Leah. And I'm live at 8:30 tomorrow night. Leah is live at 7 tomorrow on Instagram with author Tia Louise. So make sure you check out all the things. You can check our events at bookcaseandcoffee.com/events. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out.
Thanks, everybody.
Until next time, everyone.
Happy reading, everybody.